we've got something kind of neat for you today. This has only been something about 40 something odd years in the making. We can do some more explaining once we get it home, but getting it home is going to be a slight adventure on its own, although we're only got to go not even a half mile down the road here, so we'll be back with you here in about 3 minutes. Okay, so I'm not going to do a whole lot of video in here initially because I don't want to video a bunch of the guy's property, but this is what we're after. Like I say, there'll be more story to it when we get it home, but and I'll show it to you better once we get out on the road, but this is what we're after. Well, this is interesting. So we got a couple problems here. One, the tracks are froze, which we'll talk about here in a minute when we get home. It doesn't run. The steering clutches are possibly bad. We don't know. That's the story. Or at least one steering clutch might be bad. So needless to say, for the short distance we have to go to get it home, this was the best option we could come up with to make it not a whole lot of hassle and to not have to figure out a way to lift it on and off a trailer. So we got a bolt in the drawbar with a spanner bar on the 1955 picking up from the back, and then obviously the forks here on the front. And Dad's pulling me so that we can get out of the field or get pointed towards the road. And then once we get out on the road, we're going to spin around and I'm going to do the pulling. Because like I say, we've only got to go not even a half mile down the road, so. But there's a story to tell, and hopefully I can get Dad to tell it because he's better or he can tell it better than I can. So after all these years of everybody asking to hear Dad talk, you might just get your wish here. Well, it was just easier for Dad to keep pulling me rather than trying to turn this rig around, so. And the way the 150 steers, is probably better to have it on the tail end anyhow. One heck of a salamander. Oliver on both sides, case in the middle. Which is ironic since it was like 1956, 57, there was talks between the two about a merger and then it never happened. Like, I guess very serious talks actually. Would have been interesting to see how all that played out. So we'll catch you out up the road. And she's finally back home to her actual home. This was the farm she lived on for the first time, and but before we get it unhooked all the way, Dad just wants to yank on it real quick and see if the tracks will move. We doubt it, but it's hooked up, might as well try, right? screen, that's Wade. That's my sister's boyfriend. He had to come to Michigan to learn what it's like to farm with rain.
So it's on the roof so I can work on it when I got time. Yeah.
Wonder what the comments on that video will be. It's either you're a genius or you're a fucking dumbass.
Oh boy. Oh boy. That's a negative Ghost Rider. Of course, our other possibility is the brakes could very well be stuck too, because this thing's been sitting outside for 10, 15 years. I don't think they're moving. It's not moving. Somebody tried rolling it once, that's why the hump's in it, but
They look like they're good tracks. They look like they're newer.
They're brand new.
Yeah.
It's got a brand new undercarriage in it. Sprockets are new, tracks are, grousers are new, rails are new.
Sprockets ain't seat out or nothing.
Because originally these had spoke drive wheels on them, but I guess the solid ones were an update because the spoked ones like to break. From what I've been told.
Are you gonna leave it here for the time being?
Okay, Dad. Everybody's always wanted to hear you talk, and you can tell a story on this thing better than I can, so tell a story on this thing.
My grandfather, Grandpa Roundy, bought it. I believe he bought it in 1963. I believe it's a 61 or a 62. I can't confirm that yet. He had it up until I was 7 years old. Wanted to retire, didn't want to do dozer work anymore, and he sold it. Even after I stole the for sale sign off it 6 times. But
tell everybody how you got caught doing that. Tell everybody how you did it and how you got caught doing it.
I would get home from school and I would get on my mini bike and I'd ride across the field, make a loop around it, grab the for sale sign and leave before he could see me. Unfortunately, one day he saw me, and it was the one and only time I got my butt tanned by my grandpa. But 50 years later, and she's back in our hands. I was 7 years old when he sold it. Lost track of it for about 5 years, found it again. Thought I'd lost track of it again for about another 4 years, and then found it again. And finally the present owner decided they would sell it. So unfortunately it sat outside way too long and we got work ahead of us, but probably wouldn't even consider it except it was Grandpa's.
And the funny part is, it hasn't been more than a half mile from home this entire time.
When I was 7 years old, it was monstrous. Now it seems like a tinker toy.
But from what we've been told, and it sure looks like it, and it's probably partly why the tracks are froze. The guy before this guy, right?
Yep, the guy that bought it from my grandpa.
Yeah, so the second owner before this last one had took it over to a case dealer by Chicago somewhere, because he was from Chicago, and it's got brand new sprockets, brand new grousers, brand new rails. We have 6 more links of brand new rail that came with it. Rollers have been gone through, idlers have been good. It's brand new undercarriage. Supposedly the engine's been overhauled in it, although when you leave it sit outside for that long with the carburetor uncovered and all that crap, and so yeah, but supposedly it's got a fresh engine in it. And like I said earlier, supposedly one of the steering clutches was acting up. Don't know which one. Last time it ran, but fuel tank's gonna be a fight because the cap's been rusted out, so Lord knows what the inside of the tank looks like. Battery box is crusty. That tells you the last time it had an oil change, because how long's it been since the Wix filter logo looks like that?
I wouldn't be surprised if the oil was too.
But
Funniest part about the story of this Dozer is my grandpa Roundy actually bought it twice. He ended up with it because originally his uncle bought it from the case dealer in New Carlisle, Indiana, just south of here, and he borrowed money on it, got into financial trouble and was going to lose it. So my grandpa bought it from him to get him out of debt. Problem was, when my grandpa bought it from him, he didn't bother to take the money and pay the Dozer off. And my grandpa had had it for about 6-7 months, and one day the bankers came knocking at the door and wanted their Dozer, and the only way he was going to be able to keep it is he had to pay the loan off. So technically he bought the Dozer twice.
and then it's also interesting how this guy we just bought it off of ended up with it, all because some kids couldn't take care of a piece of property, or couldn't treat a piece of property respectfully, I guess would be the best way to put it.
On the globe there, is that original?
Yep, that's the
Really?
case and emblem.
But it's obviously been repainted. This was you said Elwood Rickerman put this grill guard on? Yeah, so this grill guard is actually a piece of hammer mill screen out of the grain elevator downtown here. Apparently the original keepers for the Dozer blade must have got lost at some point, and these are just torched out of a piece of flat steel. Seems like there was a couple other Elwood Rickerman fixes we saw on it. Elwood Rickerman was like the local blacksmith welder that was like known around the country. Actually, I guess one of his big things was building axles for pulling tractors, and he was sending axles out, like clear out to California and stuff back in the day, because I guess he was the only one that could weld tractor axles and make them actually not break.
I don't know if anybody has one or how many they made, but I've seen one in person.
But it's got a spot for the second remote in the dash. I don't know if it would actually come, or if they actually made one or not. I would assume they would, but it'd be cool to find a factory ripper for it, for cleaning up tree roots and stuff.
Yeah, this thing did a lot of fence row clearing and stuff.
I'm surprised it ain't got no doinks here, but it does up here.
Well, I would imagine that's why this got put on there, was this probably
Yeah.
had some wrinkles in it at one time.
This welding is a little backyard work.
But what I would like to do is take this off, get it back to original, and then for the work and stuff that we're going to do on this, because I believe it was one of the last jobs that Grandpa did with this, as I remember, was actually clearing some fence rows on the property right adjacent to Snodgrass's where you're farming. That back fence row, the west fence row.
Oh, between me and where Laraco used to live?
Yep, that where Laraco lives now used to be part of the farm before Payne's owned it. Can't remember the name now. And they had him down there clearing fence rows, and he was pushing brush, and a limb got pinched in the tracks, come up around the back and clocked him in the back of the head and knocked him cold. And the dozer went all the way across the field and ran into a tree and was sitting there bouncing, and that was what finally woke him up.
Yeah.
So knowing that this
Lucky
thing
could
get around some trees and stuff, if we can figure out how to do it, I would like to put limb risers and a ROPS on it, just so you don't have to worry about getting clocked.
Should be able to find some off of a parts dozer, because I think a 4-post with limb risers. I don't know if it was an option on a C or if you had to go to the next model newer, but I know I've seen them with.
There's nothing in the books for this one.
So maybe you had to go to a D, because this is a 310C. We've got the original manuals for it too, with some of my great grandpa's handwriting in it, which is neat.
Luckily, it's pretty stout.
He was gone before I was born, so I never met him, but
what I'm anticipating is probably going to have to happen. And
it's wood.
There's
wood under there.
If you look in the book, there is a part number for the piece of wood that went under the battery.
Really?
Looks like a piece of plywood the size of the battery that's at the bottom of the battery box. It's a part number in the book.
Looks like you could cut down a piece of 2x6 and it'd be better than that part wood.
But what I kind of anticipate to happen is we're probably going to end up pulling this tank completely off of here.
I didn't even notice that this had live PTO on it.
I don't think it's live.
Oh no?
We might be able to access it from the bottom and clean it out, but it wouldn't surprise me one.
I think we're gonna have to pull it
if we don't end up having to cut the top out of it. Because it was my understanding that was the problem he was having with it, is the tank had so much garbage in it, it kept sucking crap up and plugging the carburetor. I did find out that the correct part number fuel pump that belongs on it is still made.
I wonder if there's anything left in these drives. It's still wet around the drain plugs, but I bet you she's all gone.
The Bendix fuel pump that was on it from the factory is now made by Facet, and you can get them through Napa and a whole bunch of different places, but it's the exact same part number that Case used on it originally.
What were these? Are these that canopy?
Yes.
Yeah.
And that was the other thing I was gonna. We got the two canopies with it, and I don't know if they both have writing on them, but I don't know if either one's a factory Case. I don't think so. If I can get them untangled here. Oop. What do we got here? Well, that's probably worth. Those are both internationals. I'll be damned, those are both IH. Those are worth something. Those are worth something. I'll be damned. I would assume that's International Harvester. Huh. And there's two of them. Those are worth something in their own right. I'll be damned. Okay, so dinner's about ready, so we're getting stuff put away, but I must have left the fuel stop pulled out. We did throw can't get on, everything's so compact up here, you can't get on the fan to pull the motor over, but you can crawl under and throw a pipe wrench on the drive shaft back in there, and tried to bar it over, and she's stuck. Either the engine stuck or the transmission stuck, or both are stuck, or something stuck. Push the clutch in, that doesn't do anything, but I guess Dad said when grandpa owned this thing, it was notorious for the clutch sticking, so that would be par for the course. But yeah, this little dozer did a lot of work around here. There was the house here that we had to tear down because it was junk when the property got bought back, but it did the dirt work, because most of the houses on this block, with the exception of that one and the one on the other side, my great grandpa built, and he lived in it for a while he was building the next house, and then he'd move into that house, sell the first, and just move on down the line, which is how the original 40 got so broke up. But that dozer did the dirt work for that house. It did the dirt work for mom and dad's house. It did the dirt work for the house next to mom and dad's. It did the dirt work for, let me walk over here so you can see. It did the dirt work for the house down there by my corn. It did the dirt work for the house all the way down there where the new field is, where Granddad bought that property. We tore that house down. It did the dirt work for that house. It did the dirt. There's a house that my grandpa was living in for a while on the other side of this field right here, right on the other side of the fence line, so 1/8 of a mile down the road. Did the dirt work for that house. Did the dirt work for that house right here, but it's on the other side of them trees, you can't see it. Cleaning fence rows, just general grade where it was, that little dozer has done a lot of work around here. And like Dad said, he was 7 years old, and he's a 1968 model, so, or 1966 model, so Granddad would have sold it in 1973, so 51 years it's been gone off this farm, and she's finally back, give or take a few months depending on what month he finally sold it in. So, but like we said, the undercarriage is brand new. The engine has supposedly been overhauled in it. The clutches and the steering clutches and stuff have I mean, it's basically been completely done front to back mechanically, supposedly. It's what we've been told. Since the tracks on it are, I mean, the grousers or the sprockets are square. There is no wear on these sprockets at all. There's no wear on the rails at all. If this is all new, we have no reason to disbelieve that anything else that we were told has not been done to it. So, there's not going to need to be a whole lot of money thrown at it as far as like needing parts. I mean, it's going to need it needs nickel and dime stuff as far as parts. But for the most part, it's going to be tearing stuff apart, freeing it back up, putting it all back together, cleaning stuff up, putting it back together. And Dad's been hot ever, because this has been in the works for about a month and a half now ish. We had to wait to go get it until that wheat field got taken off, because otherwise we had no way to get it out of where it was parked. But but Dad's been hot to try it. He's been finding parts for it. I don't think he's got anything ordered for it yet, but we went in halves on it, so I still got to give him his half of the money, because I'd have went and got it this week, but I didn't think they were going to get that wheat cut, so I didn't go to the bank Friday to get money, so I got to get Dad his half, or my half of the money for it. But we gave $2,500 for it. The condition it's in, as far as a K310 dozer, probably wasn't worth that much, but because it was great granddad, my grandpa Roundy's dozer would have been my great granddad, my grandma's father. Since it was his, and I said I never met him. I never met him while he was alive. But I guess when I was like 2-3 years old, something like that, because he lived in the house that Mom and Dad lived in, or are living in, which that house actually started off as a tool shed. Was it a tool shed or a chicken? It started off as a farm building up here, and he actually pulled it down the hill with that dozer and set it on foundation, and then build a house out of it. But supposedly, I was like 3 or 4 years old. I was home. I was sick or something, and I never saw that. Obviously, Mom and Dad bought that house long before I was born, and they did a bunch of remodeling on it, so I never saw what it looked like before they bought it. But I guess the living room used to be painted green. Mind you, I never saw it painted green. And I was homesick. I guess I was laying on the couch, and Mom walked in the room, and I asked her, I said, Mom, did the living room used to be green? And she said, yeah. Mind you, I never saw it green. She said, how did you know that? And I said, Grandpa Roundy told me. Grandpa Roundy'd been dead for a long time. I never met him. So there's a ghost story for you, if you believe in such a thing. As apparently when I was very young, I must have had a short conversation with my dead great-granddad. And he must have told me what the house used to look like. But so I believe that I have met him at least once in my life. We just might not have been, yeah. So anyhow, that's where we're at on this. The plan, want to figure out how to get it down where Dad's grain truck and the 1-ton sit. Get the blade off of it so that that's out of the way, make it easier to work on. Dad's making a track press so we can get the tracks off of it, push all the pins out, clean them up, push all the pins back in, because that's why the tracks are stuck. They're brand new tracks and they've been sitting outside for 15 years. So the tracks are just so rusted because there wasn't any slap in the pins to take up for the rust. So you can get away with parking a slapped out, worn out Dozer outside like that, but one with a brand new undercarriage, not so much. Obviously we're gonna have to do some more investigating on the engine and see just how stuck is stuck. Probably pull the hood and the rocker arm cover off and see what the valves look like, if the valves are clean or if the top of the head's clean. And use a bore scope, look down in the spark plug holes and see how bad it is, and maybe we'll get lucky and be able to get away with soaking it with some ATF and diesel and that concoction. If there's a bunch of rust in there, it might involve pulling the head. But eventually we want to get it running and driving so we can use it, figure out what the problems are, fix it, and then Dad wants to go through and do a front to back on it, completely strip it down to every nut and bolt, bare, whatever, as far as down as it can go, and front to back it is what Dad wants to do with it. So this is going to be an ongoing project, and boy, what a project it's going to be. But like I say, luckily all of the high ticket items are already bought and on it, so I don't believe it's going to be an expensive project. Well, I mean, obviously once we get into the full restoration on it, then you're going to start throwing money at it because it is still a Dozer. But as far as getting it running and operating, I don't think it's going to take a whole lot of money. I think it's going to take a whole lot of time. So this is going to be one of them things we're going to work. First, we got to figure out how to get it down there undercover so that we don't have to worry about it getting rained on, tore apart. And then work on it when there's time, walk away from it when there's not, stuff like that. So we'll be seeing more of this hopefully within 6-8 months. We might see it running and driving, but no guarantees. But we will be seeing more of this as time goes on. So with that being said, 51 years later, she's finally home, so back where she belongs. That's it for this one. We'll catch you guys on the next one.